Hi, my name is Sage, and this week I made a poll on my YouTube channel and y'all voted on traditional drawing for the video, so this is what we're doing this week. And just like any traditional drawing video, obviously I'm gonna start sketching. And here I am sketching, you probably guessed it, the skull. And since he's a skull from the side, I start with sketching out the eye before then heading to the nose and then the top of the head. And you may have noticed I gave him some jaggedy lines at the top of his nose, and that's because a dragon is gonna come crashing through them. And by dragon, I also mean I think it's more of a worm with a Y, because I didn't give him any wings or legs or arms. So he's kind of like a snake, but like a cool one, you know? But now I'm moving on to giving the skull some horns, and they eventually turn into spikes in the back of the head. Ooh, scary. And you're probably thinking, those spikes look really good. Hopefully I don't erase them later. Foreshadowing. And since I gave him spikes at the back of the head, obviously his teeth are gonna be spiky too. Next, I move on to making the lower part of the jaw, and obviously I give him some spiky teeth here too. Before then giving him some even more spikes on the lower part of the lower jaw. Ooh, so now he's looking all spiky. Next, I start to sketch out the dragon slash worm slash snake that I'm making. And I know that his head kind of looks like a weird duck right now, but we have to trust the process. But now he's a duck with fangs. Ooh. I then move on to drawing the eye, and this took me so much longer than it needed to. I then put in a placeholder eye before then moving on to the spikes, because obviously I was gonna give him some so they can be mitchy-matchy together, him and the skull. And then I decided I'm gonna tackle my problems by using a transition so you don't need to see how many times I actually had to redo that eye. It was so many. I'm usually good at making eyes too. It was just an off day for me. And speaking of off days, obviously, I redid the spikes at the bottom of the skull as well. Before then going in and adding some more details to the skull itself, just in numerous areas. Before then really getting into the spikes by making everything around them all jaggedy. So now it really looks like the spikes were like impaled through, and I just think that's fun. So yay! Next, I work on the worm with the Y scale. Ooh, I know that there are actual scale methods out there for drawing specifically scales, but they look like they include math, and I don't do that here, so I'm just freestyling them. No shade to anyone who uses any of the grid methods, my brain doesn't do that. I then do just some random touch-ups here and there before then getting my micron, and I use the 08 nib, which is the thickest one that I have, and I outline the outside. Next, I take the 03 micron and I do the inside details of the worm's head. And the reason why I'm doing that is because there will be different line weights, because one of them is thicker compared to the other one, which is thinner, and it will just help the piece look more visually appealing because of the differences. And also at this point, I'm thinking in my head that this is just going to be a purely black and white piece. And as you can tell by the thumbnail, it is not a black and white piece. I decided to color in everything. So I really wanted to make a lot of different thicknesses for the line arts. As you can see, I'm using a 01 here to make the scales, and that's the reason why, just because I thought I was just going to be using black and white, so I really wanted to hone in on the different line weights. But that thinking goes straight out the window because I can't make a decision. And as you can see, there's even some sketches of some flowers next to the skull and snake, and the reason why is because, again, I can't make a decision. I was like, should I add these? Should I not? And I wait until the last possible moment to decide. I'm not going to add those. And for the detailing for the spikes, I make the lines a lot softer and rounder to really give a juxtaposition from all of the jaggedy lines that are protruding at the base of the spikes, because I just really like the composition between soft and sharp, and I really wanted to emphasize that. And after that, I just do some random detailing just all around the skull because I can't focus. Before then doing one of my favorite things, which is shading with the micron by just making a bunch of lines. I really love doing this part because it just really turns off my brain. After that, I end up taking the eraser and erasing everything so I can see what I haven't outlined yet, because sometimes I miss a few spaces, and as you can see here, I clearly did. So I go in and start to outline those areas as well until finally Everything is outlined and shaded with the micron. And remember how I said I didn't think I was going to end up coloring it because in my mind it was going to be a black and white piece? This is me in denial using a gray pencil crayon, thinking, oh hey, like I can just shade a little bit because it looks a little plain right now. And then it just keeps going. So then I looked in my pencil crayon box and I saw this really cool color. It's called Arctic Lime. It's the neon green that I'm using, and I'm like, you know what? This green is so cool. I want to use it. And then obviously it just kept snowballing and snowballing, and it just became completely colored after that. And we're gonna go on this journey together. And you may be like, is that a white pencil crayon that you're using because it looks white? It's not actually. It's a light almond color, and the reason why I'm using it is because it's a warm toned color. It's very, very light. I will say that because you can barely even see it. And since I put the almond color basically everywhere on the skull, it's really gonna make the lime green and the gray and the dark green that I'm using now really pop because it's a warm toned color, and it just warm next to cool is giving it really high contrast, and I like that. So that was what was in my mind when I was laying it down. And speaking of contrast, I'm gonna make the snake slash worm slash dragon a pinky color because pink is very close to red and red is the exact opposite of green. Hence, I'm going in with pink first. And obviously I have to add the green highlights on the snake as well. And you may be like, dude, these colors are so light. It's just because these are the first couple of layers and I'm not trying to press super hard. I'm just trying to lay out where the colors, where I want them to be, so then I can really go in with more colors after and blend everything out. And speaking of blending, I begin to blend on the horns first. So as you can see, I have green, then red, then green again, and it's because they're all, again, opposite colors, which I really like for high contrast. And then in the shadow area, I go in with some purple and some dark blue, just again to give it some more depth. And I'm also doing really, really light layers, and I'm going in small circles to try and blend everything out as best as I can. And then bam, I do this on all of the spikes. I know that they vary in color, but it was the same principle, and I made them darker on the bottom because I just feel like the light would be darker there in general. After that, I used the gray pencil crayon, and I'm just slowly layering it on the back of the head just to really make sure and emphasize that the shadows are back there before then going in with the darker green and doing the exact same thing. And then I get the bright idea, you know what would be fun? Adding pink to all these ridges. So that's what I do. I just really like the contrast, again, how much it pops, so that's why I did that. Next, I do end up taking the really, really dark blue and just adding in some low lights and shadows just wherever I feel like there needs to be. And then I take the gray yet again and do a boop transition, and as you can see, the light layering does add up over time. It just takes a hot minute and you're just doing the exact same thing over and over again, hence the transition, but it does work out. You just gotta have some patience. And here I'm taking the exact same blue that I used on the skull and using it on the worm with a Y to add in the shadows, before then taking the pink and then deciding I got bored and decided to do the belly scales instead. And I do use two colors. I use kind of a reddish color and then an orange one because I just thought that made sense in my brain. Before then skipping back to the pink, and I do use two pinks and they do look very similar, but one of them's a little bit brighter than the other. Honestly, I should have used a different one to like contrast it more, but it's fine. Having the Arctic green there really helped make everything pop, and I'm just going in here and adding the highlights to the scales at the very beginning, before then adding the dark blue for the shadows on the back of the scales. And I just continue this method of adding the Arctic green, pink, and blue until finally the entire worm is colored. And by entire worm, I mean just his scales at this point. I'm still gonna color his face. I then go in with the Arctic lime color and I begin to color wherever I believe the light would be hitting his face. And since he has pink scales, I'm obviously gonna color in his head more of a pinky tone color as well, so I do that. But then I decide, you know what, I am gonna color in his horns an orangey color that I used for his belly scales. So I do that as well. And from here on out, I take the dark blue that I used on the scales as well, and a dark red color, and continue to use both of those colors to put in the shadows on the head, while also layering the pinks up top of one another to really emphasize that he has a pink head. And lastly, I end up taking the Arctic green and doing a few more layers just to really emphasize how bright it is, until finally he looks like this. And you may be thinking, oh, this looks done, and no. I end up taking a black Posca and making the entire background black. So now it's done. And I would just like to say thank you so much for watching, and here are the glamour shots.